Hi, this is Ron Carter. Welcome to Chicago Street Journal, the newspaper now that's part of your home on television. Kicking off our first program, which we're proud to be a part of, is we have with us Kelvin Baily. He's a candidate in the 20th Ward here in Chicago. And with that, Chicago is known for its politics. Some people say it's known for being the windy city for people think of the wind. But a lot of times people say it's windy city because of the politicians are long-winded. So we're going to get into our program and we're going to talk to the candidate for the 20th Ward, Mr. Kelvin Baily. How are you, Mr. Baily?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. So you're jumping out here and running in the 20th Ward. Mm-hmm. Who are you? What makes you make this type of move in your life?
Sure. Well, Kevin Baily. I'm originally from East St. Louis, so I've seen what it is like for a community to have very great people come from it, but never come back to it. Mm-hmm. Moved up to Chicago when I was 12, and I've been all over the southern metropolitan portion of Chicago. But my background, I've been in church since since I can remember. Mm-hmm. Grandfather's a pastor, uncles are pastors, and those have been my spiritual leadership people. I'm a civil engineer by profession. Mm-hmm. Studied civil engineering at the University of Illinois. Also played sports. I played football for the University D1 and track for the University D1. And when I graduated, the civil engineering program was ranked number 1 in the country, number 2 in the world. Mm-hmm. I've also lived in Spain, studied abroad over there, where I took.
What did you study in Spain?
I still study civil engineering. Okay. 4 of the classes were in all Spanish, the lecture, the homework. The books were in all Spanish, and those were civil engineering classes. And I took 2 in English. Those are my fun ones. Mm-hmm. But when I came back to the United States from abroad, I became the spokesman for the international engineering programs, targeted especially to Spain. All right. But throughout my college career, I was very involved in NSBE, which is the National Society for Black Engineers. I was on the Academic Excellence Committee, where we focused on hosting mentorship hours and tutoring hours to the local high schools around the area. And even for my internships, I would come back and work for different social services. So I've always had this spot in my heart for working with the community.
Well, from engineering to politics, where did that transition come from?
Okay, that transition comes from, I think, a need for a certain skill set and compassion for the people. Professionally, I have signed an ethics agreement to whatever I design, whatever I build will be to the benefit of all people. Mm-hmm. My background has always been involved with people, and I have operational experience from running the metro system here in Chicago, specifically the UP Northwest line, to being the lead civil engineer, the youngest and the first black to actually run President Obama's high-speed rail processes on behalf of Union Pacific Railroad. Okay. So I believe that conjunction makes a very effective alderman. Mm-hmm. And what really spurred my initiative to go has been the absolutely disregard for the youth, especially in my area. And I believe that demographic between about 15 to 24 are the most affected.
Well, you look at the term politics, and then you look at legislation. Do you see a difference in being a legislator opposed to being involved in politics, and how do you define the difference, or are they the same?
I think they are different. I think people try to use them to describe certain people, but if you're a legislator, your focus is action, your focus is results. Mm-hmm. If you're a politician, I think that is the practice of prolonging a topic or a conversation until it's no longer relevant. Those are 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. That's how I see it.
So then, why the Alderman Cochran? What is it about him or not about him that you said that he needs to be replaced?
Well, What I see in the community is a cry out for city services, a cry out for the people's voice to be heard. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we're getting that. One of my first initiatives is to basically amplify the voice of the people by establishing monthly meetings where we can actually get the feedback from the people. Mm-hmm. Identify the issues and actually implement plans of actions that people can see. And there's that transparency. I think our ward is lacking that.
Well, when you speak of transparency and having the community involved in the process, are you looking at that as far as the community or the ward having influence in your voting pattern? Absolutely.
As an alderman, you are the representation of the people. You're not the face and the only person to just make a decision. Your job is to be there for the citizens. So I believe your vote is just one vote as a person. When you speak on behalf of a community or a group, there needs to be some consensus and input from that group.
Well, you look at the Chicago and you look at the voting pattern. There is Alderman Austin in the 34th Ward. She made a statement that we're not with the concern of the aldermen being rubber stamps. She replied to that by saying, we're not rubber stamps, we're just making good decisions. So that's not necessarily a rubber stamp. How do you feel that, is she justified by that? And is she justified based on the climate of aldermen being rubber stamps?
That's interesting. Well, I think it should be, we should look at what they vote on in two parts. You have, there might be three topics, but I'll keep it in two parts. You have regular business votes that just keep the operations of the city functioning. Okay. Then you have your controversial votes. I think if you look at, okay, are we going to pass the bill for the police to continue to operate their current budget, and everyone votes yes, then that's a way to really define. If you just look at that alone, to just keep the city running at its current rate, I think you can try to blend that into saying that someone's a rubber stamper and they're not even giving thought to the controversial issues. But if you just look at the controversial issues and how people vote on those controversial issues with respect to your ward and the people in your ward and how it affects them, I think that's how you might determine if someone's a rubber stamper.
What would be a sample of those controversial issues, and which, again, sparked you to take the position that the current alderman is not making correct legislative decisions? Or is it, I'm going to back that up with a second question, is it legislative or administrative decisions, and then is it controversial? Is there some controversial type of issue that you see as an example?
One of the major topics in Washington Park right now is the implementation of TIF. Everyone believes that we should reform TIF, but the people, if you speak to the people who have been TIF'd, everyone will ask for the same things: transparency and some input on, if you're going to tax me, how that money will be spent. That reform, I think, would be controversial. You could have a vote downtown. This is hypothetically. You could have a vote downtown that says, well, this TIF will be reformed, and they may give 3 different criteria. If that criteria is not very helpful to your community after they've done complaints against the way previous TIFs have been carried out, then that particular alderman of whichever ward may be a rubber stamper, or may just go with the rest of the people without thinking critically of its impact.
Well, taking the TIFs, for example, some TIFs cross over to different wards. Matter of fact, the 20th ward is, I believe, is on the corner of 4 wards. Is that correct? It's the 5th, the 16th ward, the 8th ward, in the middle of Inglewood. So how do you collaborate with the other aldermen that's what's good for the 20th ward, yet that TIF money is overlapping in 4 wards.
Well, in that particular case, I think it goes outside of ward boundaries at that point. We should be thinking about the people of that particular community. Okay. So that community that's split up is Inglewood, that's broken into all these different areas. So I believe we should not go against one another as aldermen because this is my ward and that's their ward. We should have a holistic approach and also great input from the people of that community to best benefit that community.
Well, let's take an issue which you made, pretty sure you're aware of, with Black Wall Street when we're talking about the parity legislation. Just kind of piggybacking on Dr. Martin Luther King, and his statement is that a particular area is 30% Negro, as he indicated, that the work should be 30% provided to Negro. So with that in mind, if you take the North Side, and the North Side is 40% Hispanic, 30% Black, and the remaining may be Caucasian, and a vote is on the city council, would you still vote to that? You know, I'm putting it on the racial line. Mm-hmm. Would you still vote for the Black interests on a ward on the North Side that have nothing to do with the 20th ward, or would you be concerned with that?
Well, Martin Luther King also had a quote that said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Mm-hmm. So I believe we should keep a fair approach no matter where we are, and we should always make sure that everyone has equal access to the opportunity, no matter which portion of the city they're in, because as an alderman, you're helping make legislation that impact the people at large as well.
Mm-hmm. So that means would you dib-a-dab in another ward affairs?
Affairs?
Well, legislative process. You know, again, taking a North Side ward, they have maybe 30% Black and 40% Hispanic, and the rest other. And the Black community have a concern, even though they're the minority in that ward. Would you take a position as an alderman on the South Side regarding something that's happening on the North Side?
Well, as a representative of the 20th ward on the South Side, you're still a part of city council. Mm-hmm. So you're still trying to represent people no matter where they are in the city, and make sure that people have, again, equal access to whatever opportunities may come about. If it's city services, if it's contract services, if it's the parity legislation is a great idea. If that is passed, we should make sure that stuff is implemented properly.
Okay. So even looking at the parity, what I'd like to do is want to come back to that, and we're going to take a break, and we're going to come right back with Kevin Baily, who is the candidate for the 20th ward in the city of Chicago. Thank you. Welcome back to Chicago Street Journal. And our guest today is Kevin Baily, who's a candidate in the 20th Ward. So, Mr. Baily, you see the atmosphere here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Chicago is just one of those cities that's known for politics. How do you really distinguish politics and being a representative? Is there a difference? Can you separate politics from being a true legislative?
Yes, I believe that's possible. I believe that's my aim. Mm-hmm. It's basically bringing the voice, the alderman's office, the voice of the alderman's office and its platform back to the people. Mm-hmm. My grandmother, I'm a grandmother's boy, tells me of the times where she would know their local representatives. They would have dinners together. They would all meet out at the park. That way they all felt like they knew who was representing them and what they were about. Mm-hmm. I believe that's also a part of sense of community. And the difference between politics and legislators, a politician and a legislator, is a connection to the people. Mm-hmm. So that's how I would take that away. And I plan on, when people punch 55 for Kevin Baily, Alderman 20th Ward, is bringing that office back to the people, engaging the people at every chance I get, getting the issues taken care of and addressed, and making sure that people are heard.
Well, I'm going to jump on that politic thing again. You know, there's not just the automatic race, there's the clerk race, and of course there is the mayor race. A lot of candidates, automatic candidates, and then even some mayoral candidates take the position that they're not going to publicly support an automatic candidate, and some automatic candidates say they're not going to publicly support a mayoral candidate. Mm-hmm. Your position on that, and is there a difference again between leadership opposed to representative?
Leadership is a proactive role. I believe leadership is seeking out one of the first people, one of the first on the scene to figuring out the problems and the issues. And a representative is one that refers back to the people before making a decision. Can you be one and the same? I do believe so.
Well, what that means that you would make an endorsement in this mayoral election?
Right now, I feel like the 20th Ward has so many chronic issues that I'm focusing on being able to properly articulate those before paying attention to what's going on the citywide space. Mm-hmm. If it does happen to be that a mayoral candidate is endorsed, it'll have to come from, thorough analysis of what they stand for and how it correlates to the.
So right now you're not in it's more of an open door. Rather you will endorse, opposed to if you would stay neutral.
It's more so currently my priority is the community, the local community that I'm in. Secondarily,
that's a political answer you're giving me.
I don't think so.
No?
I think it's what people should be doing. A lot of people look at the mayoral race and look for the mayor to define what they should do, versus finding out on the ground level what the concerns are, and then say, okay, which one of these mayoral candidates fit what I see in the community?
Well, do any of those mayoral candidates fit your ideology of how you want to be, you implement what's good for the 20th Ward, or are you there yet with any of them?
I still have some questions I would like to have answered. Just like you, identifying things that you might consider to be political answers to things that you would like to see. Everyone does that. And they may be thinking, they honestly may think that they're answering the question. So,
well, as you know, the newspaper is involved with Black Wall Street, and we have looked at two of the districts, such as the 61st Street and 63rd Street, and looking at them as becoming a potential Black Wall Street district. What is your take on that?
A potential Black Wall Street district. I think that's a advantageous idea. I think it's good. I think it's a great goal to shoot for.
Okay. Would you look at being a part of the implementation of it as well?
As far as being a facilitator for people to have equal access to opportunities and access to deal flow and capital, I think that is definitely a position to take that would be beneficial.
Okay. So as we move forward to this here election, what is, two quick questions. If you won an election, other than this campaign, is there a candidate that you would support other than if you were not running?
If I was not running?
Right. Is there a candidate that you would support?
I would not support the incumbent. And there's a candidate that I spoke to, and I really liked what he was about. I really felt his heart was in the right place, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to make the ballot.
So the candidates now, you would go fishing?
Well,
if you wasn't in the race yourself?
I haven't assessed the candidates for, if I would support them, the ones that are on the ballot, because I'm been focusing on the race that I need to run. But before that...
So that wasn't a fair question of it?
Well, I wouldn't say it wasn't a fair question. Okay. I think the question is one... I think it's a fair question, and I wonder what other people might answer if they had the opportunity to be questioned with that. But honestly, I haven't taken a look since.
Okay, so is there anything that you feel as though the voters really need to get a difference about who you are compared to the other candidates and really making that choice to vote for you? Is there a quick type of direction that they need to know to do so?
Absolutely. Well, when we canvassed the area and we turned in signatures, my camp turned in almost 6,500 plus signatures. All the other candidates that ran in this exact same race turned in the second closest was the incumbent with 1,600.
Okay.
If that's a testament to the work ethic about getting out and getting in front of people, I believe that separates us.
So apart. You're saying that you actually have proven your direction, that the people are basically decided for you to win opposed to you?
No. What I'm saying is what separates me apart from the other candidates. I believe my work ethic is a lot more. I believe I come to the table with operational experience of having multiple multi-million-dollar operations and hundreds of employees that spread from Chicago to L.A., to bring that experience where I ran a national company to the ward and run city services as easy as you and I are sitting here breathing, so we can focus on the things in the culture of the community, focusing on education, economic development, and public safety, and the fact that moves our community forward.
Well, we want to welcome you to being a part of it. Chicago Street Journal, we're going to be making our endorsements, and we have looked at your candidacy, and you're working with Real Deep of Hood Hope. And so we're going to move forward, and we're going to look at our support with you as a legislator. However, we're not officially making any position right now until our meeting on January the 31st. But until then, I do want you to not have the luck, but to have the strategy to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
So again, thank you again for being on Chicago Street Journal. And welcome again to our first show here with Probation Challenge, and we're going to look for other programs, and we're going to have just as much of an enthusiastic program to you, the viewers. Again, this is Ron Carter with Chicago Street Journal newspaper. Thank you.